Hello and welcome to a slice of sunshine on the edge. Or maybe it's just a slice of sliciness. Well, whatever it is the Kizer Sliver. And what is sliver? Well, sliver is a small piece of, or a small slice of something. And why slice of sunshine? Because I've actually seen this knife almost identical. In fact, I think in some cases it is the same knife, also called the Kizer Sunburst. So I don't know if it had a different name in different markets, or perhaps it was updated at some point, because on some websites I've even seen it called the Kizer Sliver Sunburst. So there we go. There that is. So this is a Ning designed knife, and it is the second Ning designed knife that I've had on the channel. The previous one, also a Kizer knife, was the Kizer Spirit. Check that review out at your own peril. It was one of my earlier reviews. And then I mentioned, I think in that I might have mentioned, maybe not, some of his other Kizer knife designs. So the Kizer Shoal, I've actually got that knife here, and I'll show that when we do size comparisons. And then he's done some knife designs. In fact, correction, the Spirit is not a Kizer knife. Rewind. The Spirit was a concept knife because Kim Ning was a former Kizer production manager, and he's one of those that broke away from the company and went off to concept. So yes, the Spirit was concept. The Kizer knife that he designed was the Shoal, and I will show that later on. And then he's also designed for concept the Gremlin, a Scipitar, and the Cryo. Right. Wow. After struggling to get through all of that, I am now going to be doing the usual, and that is materials, dimensions, and weight, and then design and attributes of this interesting looking knife. Right, let's get cracking. So the blade we have CPM S35VN. Handle is aluminium. The liner, and there's embedded liners inside there. I'll show that a little closer later on. Those are stainless steel. Clip is stainless steel, same as the screws and pivot cap. And then the pivot assembly on this knife, it runs on phosphor bronze washers. Right, dimensions and weight. We have a blade length of 90 millimeters. And that is 3.54 inches. Now, these dimensions are slightly different from Kizer's stated, but these are what I checked myself. Some of them didn't quite match up, but I'm going to be quoting what I have measured myself. So, blade thickness is 2.9 millimeters, and that's 0.11 inches. Closed length handle thickness. First of all, handle thickness is 11.9 millimeters, and that's 0.46 inches. Closed length of the knife is 119.7 millimeters, and that's 4.71 inches. Overall length of the knife is 209.7 millimeters, and that's 8.25 inches. And then weight of the knife, and I've got stated weights here from Kizer, and I suspect that these might be a little bit off if I consider how the other dimensions seem to be quite a bit off. Let's see what that looks like. Are we on? Let's try that again. We're on grams. Let's have a look, see what I get. 84 grams. Yeah, it's quite a bit off from what they state. They say 88.2 grams. I get 84 grams, and that in ounces is they had 3.11 ounces, and I've got 3 ounces. So there we go. Yeah, once again, it just kind of gives you that ballpark. Right, let's get this knife open and speak about it. So a very slender, long, thin, stabby sort of knife. I think the name Sliver really does suit it very well. And by the way, I spoke about the other name, the Kizer Sunburst. If you go onto Kizer's website at the moment, they do have the knife, and it is on their website listed as the Sliver. I did notice in some photos online where people speak about the Sunburst that there are a few differences on some of the hardware. So the photos that I've seen of the Kizer Sunburst, the little pivot cap looks a bit different. and these thumb studs look a little bit different. The detail on them is different as well, but the rest of it, the blade shape, the finishes on that, the clip, and this pattern on the handle, all of that looks the same between the two models, I suppose. I don't know if one is older and one is newer, but there we go. Like I say, currently on their website, it is called the Sliver. Right, so we have a modified drop point, a very thin drop point, with unfortunately a slight recurve to that edge. By the way, the edge very neat and tidy and very sharp out of the box, but there is the slightest recurve that you will need to contend with if you want to keep that edge neat and sharp. Little sharpening choil, what's better, like that or like that? Little sharpening choil just behind the blade to assist you with keeping that neat. The finish on that blade is stonewash, and that very, very nicely done. And then we have a slight hollow grind to that blade as well, to the primary grind. Big swedge running about 2/3 the length of the blade. You can see that running down all the way to the edge, and that sort of neatly lines up with the flat of the blade that then runs into the ricasso area, spine of the blade, squared off. And then I mentioned briefly about the differences in the thumb studs. Looking at the photo of that other, of the Sunburst, the size of those thumb studs looks the same. So you can see quite big thumb studs. And then towards the back of the blade, we've got the jimping that lines up with jimping on the handle as well. The thumb studs, that is the only way to deploy the blade, and I'll show you deployment and how what the action is like a little bit later on as well. So let's get that back open and see this shape of the knife. So you can see the entire knife has this slight arch to it, the slight curve to it that does really look very, very good and very well integrated. The hardware, I mentioned Torx and all stainless steel. So in this particular instance, in this version that I have, not too much detail on that pivot cap, a little bit more on the pivot cap on, like I say, I think that that would be the Sunburst model. General shape of that handle, you can see that curve and then a little rise towards the back. Once again, what's better? Okay, that's better. A little rise towards the back of the handle, and then this very neatly done oval lanyard hole towards the back of the handle. Open back design, you can see the standoffs and the shaping to that, sort of those, as I always describe it, pulley shaped standoffs. Those look very, very good. And then on the inside, I mentioned the liner. So it is a standard liner lock, standard fare, nothing unusual on that score. But inside there, see if I can get a bit of a reflection maybe. We've got deeply embedded these stainless steel liners embedded into that aluminium scale, I suppose, or is the best description of it since we have liners. But those liners don't go the full length of the handle, and if I get the right angle, you might just be able to see it. Those liners end about there, so they stretch all the way from just inside the blade side of the handle, and then stretch to about that point there, and then from there on to the rest of the handle, it's all aluminium, and that's the same on both sides of that. See if I can maybe catch that in the reflection. Right, pocket clip, we've got a tip up. It is right hand only, and interesting to see how that's attached, and I suppose it was the best way of doing it because of this pattern, and that pattern is very deeply milled into the handle. But there's a little platform that is created, you can see that just behind the top of the clip, and that's where the clip attaches, and not particularly deep carry, as you can see. So then in your pocket, you're going to see the pocket clip, and you're going to see quite a bit of that knife sticking out as well, and you can see the general shape of that pocket clip generally following the curve of the knife. But in terms of design, it really is all about that handle. And you know, the other name, the Sunburst name, would suit this very well as well, because you've got that sort of sunburst effect happening on the handle, and that really does look good when the light catches it. And try to get a little bit closer so you can see how deep those lines are in the handle. That does really look good. And this particular version that I've got in the green, and then the other versions that you get the handle in the aluminium handles in black, blue, and orange. The orange also does look good. I saw the orange, and I suppose it does support it does support, it does suit. That's the word I want. It does suit the Sunburst, the other name of the knife in orange. But the green to me particularly looks good. It looks very, very classy. It sort of has an Art Deco look to me, that pattern on that handle. Really very, very attractive. And then there's a brown Mike Carter version of the knife as well that doesn't have that deep pattern on and doesn't catch the light the way that this does. So that deep design milled into the handle does mean that handle is pretty grippy. You do get good purchase on that handle, and in general the ergos on this knife very, very good for such a slender knife. So you can see that in my medium-sized hands, it is quite a long knife. I wear a large glove, and you can see how much of that handle sticks out the back of my hand, and then your thumb naturally falls onto that jimped area that runs through the spine of the blade and the spine of the handle. You can see a little bit of a flat area there, so you can, I suppose, almost call it a choil, although it is not really a choil, but you can see that it is comfortable to choke up on this blade as well. Your finger very comfortably falls into that area, and that's what that looks like if you're choking up on the blade. Right, action. So the knife running on those phosphor bronze washers, and it is incredibly smooth. It really does feel very good. And then with those big thumb studs, you really can get a nice flick on this knife when you're deploying the blade. It really does fly out, and if you get that in your hand like that, you can do a very nice middle finger flick on this as well. So really good action. A little bit is it? Well, I suppose with a lot of coaxing it is sort of drop shuddy, but the action on the knife really, really good. And this is one of the surprises on this knife, is the materials, the fit and finish, which is really good on this knife. How's the blade centering on this? Yeah, pretty much bang on. Fit and finish materials with that S35 VN blade steel, the phosphor bronze washers, and that aluminium. And you look at the price of this knife, it really is at an excellent price point. This is sort of hovering around that budget knife price point. So really surprising. You get a lot for the money on this knife. It really is a good one if you like the shape of it. Now, well, maybe I'll speak about that when I summarize my feelings and thoughts on the knife. But let me lay this down and do what I always do around this point, and that is just to give my gratitude once again to Blades and Triggers. This is another knife that has been supplied by them. So appreciate their ongoing support of the channel. So check this out and other Kizer knives and other brands of knives and other tactical goodies on their website, and that is BNT Online. Right, now, size comparisons, and I brought a couple of other little knives in. So let me first bring in that other Ning. So this is obviously when he still was with Kizer, and this is the Kizer Shoal. Just give you a little look at that. So that's also a Ning designed knife, just so that you can see some of his other work. There we go, quite different to the Sliver. And then I brought this knife that I always do bring in when I've got something long and slender to show you. Knife, that is. So here we go, give you a sense of that. And that is, what is this? This is the Wee Array. Give you a little look at that. And then this, also a longish knife, not as slender perhaps, but this is the Wee Cirrus. Give you a sense of that as well. And then I may as well, the knife that I normally bring out when I speak about gentleman folders, so it's also sort of a slender knife, not as long, and that is the what is it? Also Kizer, the Kizer Apis. I'll give you a bit of scale on that as well. Right, now, the usual knives that I use. First one up is the Spyderco PM3, the smaller Spyderco. Give you some scale on that. Right, and let's bring this one on since it's still hanging about. And this is the Medford Slim Midi. Give you some scale there too. And then the last one that I'll use is the Benchmade Mini Barrage, because as I always do say, it's been out for long. If you like knives, I'm pretty sure you will be familiar with that knife, and that is the, did I say it? The Benchmade Mini Barrage? Well, if I didn't say it, I'm saying it now. There we go, some scale on that as well. Right, so that's it for size comparison. So my feelings on the knife: so good value for money, great materials, excellent price point, a very interesting looking knife, I think very attractive. As I mentioned before, it's all about the handle and that pattern on the handle. That is really very, very nicely done. Now, what I don't really like is that sort of relation of blade to handle. This blade just looks to me, and this is completely subjective, a little bit thin, and with that little bit of a recurve on it, it looks, I don't know if you've seen a blade that is over sharpened or been sharpened incorrectly, and you get that the blade its proportions start looking too thin, and that the sharpening sort of starts eating into the blade. That's how it sort of feels and looks to me. But that is just my feelings. That is a completely subjective thing. That is about the aesthetics. You might love the proportions, you might love that blade shape. As for the rest of it, there is nothing to knock this knife on. If the knife appeals to you from a look perspective, the ergos are very good, the action is very good, and as I said, the value for money on this knife are excellent. So if this does appeal for you, I highly recommend you go check it out. It might be your ideal EDC knife. Guys, and I think that is just about it. I think I've mentioned everything that I wanted to on the knife. So all that's really left for me to do is once again thank you for joining me. Always really do appreciate it when you do, and would equally appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and the bell icon so you can be notified every time I release a new video, because I really would love you to join me more often. And once again, if you did enjoy the video, if you did like it, please do give it a like, a thumbs up. It does help with the algorithms. And other than that, you go well, and God bless.